Hello, it's the Late Challenge. Hello, I'm Gareth Robertson. Hello, this is Mo Stewart. Now, first off, an announcement. Apologies regarding a few technical difficulties in recent weeks. So you may have known if you jump on the live video and watch that a couple of our live streams have died mid-show. And now let me tell you, that's frustrating for all of us involved. You, us, the lads here in the studio. But, you know, blame three. That's what I say, because no one wanted that to happen, but that's what did happen. And anyway, because we don't want it to happen again, this week is not actually live. So George, if you're out there still commenting, even though I can't see your comments, unlucky you bell. So yeah, no, there's none of that this week. There's none of me getting wound up by blurts on this little screen here, because I haven't even brought the little screen because I knew that it wouldn't be live. We also had a lot of people telling us for some reason that last week's show didn't show up as a podcast on Apple Podcast. Now, we didn't do anything different to what we ordinarily do, and plenty of people, including us, could see it there. And then when I shared the link with many people who were asking me, they were like, oh yeah, that works. So it's something Apple's end is all I can presume. We didn't do anything different. Again, sorry about your experience type of thing, but we don't think we've done anything wrong, really. So we'll just try again and hopefully everything will be sound this week. So anyway, fingers crossed. Hopefully no more gremlins, and we can talk about the Reds. Now, on that...
Yeah, I was going to say, are we sure that's a good idea?
I mean, pretty much everything has conspired to test the relevance of doing a show today. But here we are, because we always do one. You know, we're not exactly going to be on top of breaking news, but we do know about Alisson. Sound. I'm sure we'll talk about that. As you already know, the Reds have played twice since we last spoke. And as you already know, you know what happened on both Tuesday and last Friday. You'll also know that they're playing again tomorrow. And you'll know that there's an FA Cup draw, but that's later after we've already done the show. So yeah, absolutely breaking news all round. You know, we're on the cutting edge of broadcasting and podcasting right here. But hey, we'll just have a chat anyway. So, yeah, 2 games against Wolves since we did the last show. 1 defeat, 1 win. The Reds are in the half of the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. So could the boys lift a 9th FA Cup for Liverpool?
Yes. Yes, they could.
Shall we start there?
Yes. I think there's always a good chance to start with some positivity.
Yeah.
And I think most of us, if you'd have asked us 7 days ago, if you said you can win one and lose one, which would it be? We probably would have chose to win the other one. But having now had it, we are now in the height of the FA Cup. And there are still some other big teams in it, obviously. But I do think on a one-off game, this team can still be a match for anyone. You just have to trust that is the game that you want to see that turns up, and not someone who comes out and lays an egg. I still have a sneaking suspicion that some of the other teams might draw each other. I don't know where I'm just getting it from. I'm just getting vibes that I think that we might not necessarily have the worst draw as it comes to quarterfinals. By the time this comes out, I might look like a complete knobhead because you know that we've drawn Arsenal away. But still, that's just where my vibes are right now. But it just feels like the FA Cup, which is almost like an afterthought in a season like this where we've not been at our best, to still be able to pick up our trophy and hopefully still do the business of getting into the Champions League, I think is a real testament to how we are as a club. Like, trophies are what we exist to do. And I still think that this is probably the more likely of the two that we have a chance for.
Yeah, I just think you're a bit of an entitled fucker if you say the FA Cup's not really worth winning, especially in a season like this. I mean, we kind of fucked it off last season knowing that we were going to win the league. That's what I would say. That's what I would say the selection gave out vibes of at Plymouth. This season, I mean, I always want us to win. I love the FA Cup. I've got loads of great memories. To me, it's a competition that you go out and you try and win, and I don't really get the debate about it. And, you know, like, if you look at the teams that have won it, for however many years now. Okay, Crystal Palace won it last season, but we all thought that was fantastic, remember?
Yeah.
Before that, you've got Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Leicester, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, United, Arsenal, Wigan, that was a good day.
Yeah.
Chelsea, Manchester City, Chelsea, Portsmouth, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. So that's the last 25 years of the FA Cup, supposedly not worth winning and mainly being won by big clubs.
By the way...
So therefore, I would say it's worth doing. No? The oldest knockout competition in the world and all that.
This used to be one of my little geeky things I did as a kid. I think I could probably tell you the next 25 winners from 99 to 1975, if you wanted to.
Give Mo a bell if you want him to do that. Ask him when he's DJing. He'll put on something by the Orb, and then you got 25 minutes to go through it with him. As it stands as well, again, breaking news, right on the edge of news here, there's still 9 teams in the FA Cup as we're speaking, because it's West Ham v Brentford tonight. Mm-hmm. So there's still 9 teams as we speak who could win it. According to the bookies, Arsenal are the favourites 9-4, Man City 3-1, Liverpool 7-2, Chelsea 9-2, Leeds 14, Brentford 20, West Ham 25, Southampton 40, and Port Vale in League One 100-1. That was boss. I enjoyed that. So yeah, I mean, I think we're both saying we fancy it. We fancy us. We're saying we can beat anyone on our day and all that kind of stuff. We've also got, we're one match away from a little Wembley one, and I kind of think that would be lovely after a season of tragedy, graft, injury, toxicity. We're a game away from going to Wembley for the semi-finals, and then hopefully going back again for the final. Meldrew, I'm still not into semi-finals at Wembley. I never will be. I know why it happens. I know that they're paying the stadium off. I know that there's a contract. All of those kind of things. But Villa Park, Old Trafford, all that kind of stuff made a whole lot more logistical sense for fans. And it was just better. Yes.
I think it's weird because my only actual experience of an FA Cup semi-final is at Wembley with you. 4 years ago, was it now? And that was actually really good fun. That was a great day. We beat Man City. That was great. But if you'd asked me what my preference would be, it would still be... I know the idea of a neutral ground, and Wembley is technically the ultimate neutral ground, but I just like the idea of being in someone else's house when they're not there, you know?
Great.
It is really cool, isn't it? And then obviously if you get a situation where you've got 2 northern clubs in the semi-final... then you can do, okay, well, we can use one of the northern ones, and it just makes it...
And it's still different, and it's still, it's sort of like an adventure and all of that kind of stuff, but it just isn't a massive ball ache of going to London and then going again, which sort of takes the edge off going for the final. What else was I going to say? I've completely lost track because someone's trying to call me.
so something else you put in about the bookies and Arsenal being the bookies' favourites. What I'm interested in, I don't know if we can try and get it up during the show, but what the odds are for Arsenal to do the quadruple, because they're favourites for this competition. Last I saw, they were favourites to win the Champions League.
Yeah.
They're favourites to win the Premier League. They're probably favourites in the one-off game with Man City for the Carabao Cup or whatever. But I still would bet that the quadruple odds are pretty long. So it's almost like in the end...
10-1.
Yeah. So it's almost like on an individual level, yes, they should be winning everything.
Oh, sorry. 11-1.
Wait, is it gone out?
So 11-1 for the quadruple, 10-1 for a treble, and then 13-2 for a double, and so on. There's all different things, but to do the lot, 11-1. I mean, I've got that on the list there about, we've seen as Liverpool fans what it's like when you go really far in all the competitions and how goose the players end up being. And obviously we won the 2 cups that were the lowest of the priority of the 4, if you like, that particular season. But we were just so goose, like, extra time against Chelsea, and like they're just not even attacking because they've got nothing left in the tank. So you do wonder about, can Arsenal sustain this? No one's ever done it. It's got to take its toll. We all keep saying, though, don't we, like, look at the strength of the squad, look at their bench and all that kind of stuff, but also you've got the pressure stuff as well. Like, it all starts ramping up, everyone starts talking about it, whether you like it or not,
absolutely.
whether you ever say it or not. the press will say it, some of your fans will say it, some gobshites on a video, oh yeah, they'll say it. Do you know what I mean? And before you know it, it piles on the pressure.
And I mean, let's face it, they didn't exactly smash Mansfield, did they?
They changed the team a bit.
They changed the team a bit, and obviously there were a couple of 16-year-olds. I did feel sorry for Marley Simon for making a mistake for the Mansfield goal. But, I mean, even they brought on a lot of... so they brought on Jesus, didn't they? They brought on Eze. They brought on like players who you'd think, well, okay, they'll score 1 or 2 and stretch away. But the point is that, yes, this is them using the squad and still getting through, but... there's a mental and physical toll difference between winning that game 3-0, 4-1 or whatever, and going into the final injury time where a goal means extra time. Like, that's a massive difference. And in terms of the pressure of the quadruple stuff, if they win that Carabao Cup final against City, that's when it starts kicking in. Like, that's when all of the quadruple chat will really start to ramp up.
You know what? Like, I mean, we don't know the draw, and so it seems daft to talk about a draw that what's happened and we don't, but I'll have Arsenal at Anfield all day.
Yeah.
All day. Bring them on. We've already played them twice. Nothing to be scared of. Beat them at Anfield. They didn't batter us at their place. It was a draw where I would argue we were actually the better side. So, bring it.
They don't really like coming to Anfield, do they?
No. So bring it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure other people will say, I want Port Vale or whatever, but I'd take the strong one. I'd take the big... Like, for me, like, we're now in the time of year where, you've got the lighter nights, the weather's warming up, everyone's feeling a bit more positive, or certainly I am. And, you know what I mean? It's where you can sort of sniff it a bit, where you're like, this is where Anfield can come alive. These big nights, these big matches, Champions League games, a big quarter-final against Arsenal, who are probably going to be crowned champions, and we want to land one on their nose, on their chin to say, do you know what? We might not win it this year, but we're still Liverpool.
Listen, we
bring that on, baby.
We did that in 2005 to Chelsea in the Champions League. We did it in 2018 to Man City in the Champions League. That's what we do. Even if you say we're not good enough to be consistent enough to be title challengers, the team that is going to win the title, we can still say on a one-off game, mano a mano, or 11 mano, I don't know how many, what's the plural of mano? I don't know enough Spanish. We can match them. We can beat them. I would say the same about Man City. If you look at that City game, the last time City came to Anfield a few weeks ago, it was a bit of a weird game. But Liverpool almost did enough to win it and then had it snatched away right at the death. That's the kind of one where you want to go into it and
say... work through every possibility and make a clip for each other. And if we get Chelsea, I say bring it on. It'll be like those European...
So one thing I was going to say, two things I was going to say, and it feels like I'm going to start with doing this anyway. One, Liverpool always seem to draw Southampton. Whenever there's a chance to draw Southampton in the Cup, we always seem to do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But me personally, if you ask me which one do I absolutely want, Leeds United. Leeds United at Anfield. 2 very good reasons. One, I still don't know how the hell we didn't beat them over either game this season already. So I want to reclaim that. And 2, as some of you may know, my sister supports Leeds United, and the last time she came to Anfield to watch us, Leeds won. So we need to kind of I need to erase that as well. So Leeds United in the Cup. A little bit bigger allocation for the away fans. Hopefully she'll get a ticket in her own end this time, Leanne, if you're watching. And yeah, we battered them 6-0.
In other news in the FA Cup, obviously mentioned Port Vale knocking Sunderland out, which was excellent. Also good kit. Excellent kit.
Hereford 72 stars, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was into that, very much into that. And this is what I think, where clubs are always playing around with kits and looking for a reason to do X, Y and Z. Just do a proper old school one, but not like a nod to it.
Yeah.
And like, as soon as I saw that, I thought, that's boss, that. I mean, I'm not a Port Vale fan. I'm not going to go and buy it, and I don't really wear kits, to be honest, full stop. But nevertheless, I just thought it's great, that.
Yeah. Have you seen what they're doing in La Liga, where they're having a whole weekend of retro kits?
No.
I think it's either next weekend or the weekend after. Everybody, with the exception of Real Madrid, because they're, arsey about everything. Everyone's just going a retro kit from the 90s. And they're going to be like wearing
like
them
non-uniform day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
But like everyone's going to be wearing, at least, I don't think it's the same year. I think it's just one kit from the 90s and everyone's just going to be wearing it and they're going to go back on sale for a bit as well. It's just a bit of fun, a bit of nostalgia, but also just kind of making it seem a little bit more special when it was before. And for some teams, harking back to the time when they were really good and maybe they aren't anymore. But yeah, it's just that kind of fun kind of vibe.
Flashback there that could mention non-uniform days. I was a bit of a scruff in school. Yeah, I used to get ripped for having like shit clobber and stuff like that. So non-uniform day was a test. So well in Freesy, who won't be watching, for lending me a Joe Bloggs jumper for one of the non-uniform days, so it'd look cooler.
Amazing.
Not cool, but you know what I mean. Anyway, Port Vale have only reached the last 8 of the FA Cup once before in their history in 1953-54, and they went on to get to the semis. And then there was a refereeing controversy in those semis as well. So, a boss for them genuinely is. I've actually got a relation who supports Port Vale, is from the area, goes to games as well as going to Liverpool games. And I just thought, don't need to speak to him. I know he will have been there. Looked on his Facebook and he was.
Amazing.
Boss. We love that kind of stuff, don't we? Anyway, that was a lot of ways of avoiding talking about our games, but here we are. Now look, what we'd ordinarily do is obviously we go quite in depth and almost like review the games, don't we, and we churn through all the stats and all of that kind of stuff. As we've already said, it feels kind of pointless doing a full review of these 2 last games, as 1, they were ages ago, and 2, for many people, their heads and their feet will literally be in Turkey. So we'll just do sort of, a few matters arising really from the 2 games and do it that way around. I just thought as well, give us a shout, lads, when we've actually done an hour, because I've got nothing in front of me. that tells me the time. I always rely on scrolling up and down on the YouTube live thing, and it's not there. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to start with Incomoa.
Of course.
So we've all been banging the drum. He must play, he must play, he must play. Steve Gerrard did the interview post-match saying what I thought, certainly my views were, and a lot of other Reds were. He's got to start. Gakpo's been ineffective. He's got to start. He started, and he was great.
Yeah.
And Warnock gave him FA Man of the Match Cup thing as well. So he got a little thing for his cabinet. Good. Let's remember as well that he was already the youngest ever Liverpool goal scorer at 16 years and 361 days, and the 4th youngest scorer in Premier League history, and the youngest Liverpool player to appear in the FA Cup when he played against Accrington Stanley. So my point being that that brings with it obviously pressure. Everyone's looking in, everyone's saying this. We know that he's on social media, even though he's being told not to be. That's his personal choice, obviously. He has grown up as like a digital native with a phone in his hand, probably from birth, like most kids these days. So, my point being again, he will have seen what everyone was saying. He will have known the narrative, and he will have known this is finally my chance. Go. His 5th start for the Reds. He still hasn't played from the start in a Premier League game. It's fair to say he didn't let anyone down.
He didn't. I was so pleased for him for so many reasons. All what you said before about how the expectation had ramped up really high for him to come in. And as soon as everyone saw he was in the starting lineup, they were like, right, okay, this is it. This is going to be the point. And he would have known that. And I also think he would have probably known that when he came on against Wolves in the league game, it probably wasn't his best of his cameos. It was probably a couple of moments.
Certainly not defensively.
No. Well, exactly, yeah. There were a couple of moments where you can imagine him and the coaches sitting down in the film room going like, yeah.
See you jogging here. Why this fella's about to take a shot.
Don't do that.
Don't do that, mate.
Yeah. But whatever. I mean, his ability to shake off that and go again, and to shake off all of the potential pressure and go and really show what he's about was so impressive. There were so many cool things about it. First of all, I tweeted during the game, the biggest compliment you could give him was the reaction of the Wolves fans every time they stopped him. They cheered. They were like, yeah, because they knew that he was the danger. Like, if you watch that first half back, I don't think any other Liverpool player was any kind of a threat at all. And it got to the point where Liverpool players knew, right, our way home here is feeding that kid, giving him the ball, and he'll make something happen. And there were a few times early on in the first half where he did something really good and he put a cross in. And obviously Gakpo was playing as the centre forward. Ekitike got a rest, probably could do with one. And you just think, if we had a proper centre forward there, he's getting on the end of this. Like, it's almost a shame for him that he doesn't get to play with a proper centre forward, because so much of what he's doing well, a proper centre forward would have gobbled it all up. But yeah, he was really good. Even when they doubled up on him, he was still fearless. He was still doing it. Even when occasionally one of the big rocks barged him off the ball and everyone cheered.
Yeah, they wasn't bothered.
Got up, did it again. And
again. Yeah.
there was a couple of really cool moments, because I was actually at the game. There was a couple of cool moments after the game. One where he went onto the pitch to get his little awards, and he walked past me when he was coming back, and he just had the biggest grin on his face. It was very much just like, oh, look, I got this little thing. But also just a genuine pride that he grasps his opportunity. But just, you do get to see players in mixed zones and all that kind of stuff, and you get to kind of get a bit of a sense of their personality when they're around press. Like, some of the players, when they're going from the dressing room to the bus, they don't make eye contact with the press. They try to pretend like they're not there. Some players will be
Mo.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this time he did just kind of like say, he waved, but then he was just like, anyone else is like, no, I'm not talking today. But some of them will like literally like, they'll have their headphones on, they put the hood up and stuff like that.
Sipping the wash bag up.
Yeah.
Looking at the watch.
Yeah, whatever.
Telling them to be on the phone.
Whatever they can do to avoid any kind of confrontation or even just interaction. Whereas he was just like, he just looking for a smile. He turned towards us and someone was like, Rio, and he's just like, no. And just kept walking. And obviously there was a time a few weeks ago where he did stop and he did want to say something. And I just think that he's showing so many hallmarks of being a mature person as well as a really good footballer that give me a lot of encouragement that he's going to help. That's going to help him with some of the obstacles he's going to face over the next 2 to 3 years. Because look, all great young players have a point where the tide turns against them and suddenly the higher standards to be held, and some people enjoy your whole build them up and break them down thing. I mean, like, you can think of how many of the young players in other clubs have gone through similar right now. Like, Phil Foden went through it last year. Cole Palmer's arguably going through it right now. Jack Grealish has been through it. Like, there's loads and loads. Obviously, Raheem Sterling went through it in his career. So it's almost impossible to just be up and up and up and up and up. But it looks to me like he's got the goods to be able to deal with that when it comes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, it was, the telling thing was how willing the senior players are to give him the ball. You said it was sort of like the way home, and, you got Mo Salah on the other side with his fantastic record for Liverpool. Obviously broke his drought and scored a couple of goals in these 2 games as well. But they were giving it to Rio. They were like, he's the man. You could hear Virgil at one point ordering him to run his opponent, if you like. So he's done that. He started the game. He's played well. He's shown everyone, the world, if you didn't know already, what a talent he is. I think it's interesting to talk about the other side of this as well. So we've all been banging the drum asking for this, and we got it, and now it's only going to grow and grow and grow and grow. And so now it's straight away, well, will he start, will he start in Turkey? Will he start at the weekend against Tottenham? All of this kind of stuff. And I think we both try on this podcast, try and be fair, try and look at all the different views, try and look at views that aren't necessarily ours, all of that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking about this before when I was writing this out, and I was like, well, is this like an example of like fan brain is what I've called it here. So like fan brain says, I've seen a fella who's a box of tricks, who can go both ways, who can meg an opponent, who can, almost score a goal, who's putting great balls into the box, and, Virgil should score one of them there, and, clearly causing problems to Premier League level players. So is the fan, because you've seen that, and because you like that, and because that got you off your seat, and because you were excited, and because you watched a lot of boring football this season, you want more of it. You want the dopamine hit of more Rio Ingamoa in your football side. So does that fan brain rule out any kind of pragmatism over this? Because I just think we've seen, even at our own club, countless examples of players coming through this age, playing too much football, and then suffering as a consequence of it. Michael Owen is probably the most obvious one. Absolutely banged them in, but he was playing through injuries by his own admission, and he paid for it later on in his career. Gerrard even had issues as well, growing pains and all of this kind of stuff, various things, various issues. Bajcetic now, like, you know, where's he gone? Where is he? Is he okay? Has anyone seen him? You know what I mean? Like, he was great, wasn't he? He was fantastic, and I think we were all waiting for him to come back, and then he's just had issue after issue after issue, to the point where it feels like no one even asks about him anymore. So my point being then, to go back, is I'm sure we'd all love him to play every minute of every game, rip fullbacks, score goals, set goals up. But for as much as we might be frustrated collectively at Gakpo, and clearly lots of us are, Ingamo is 5'7", Gakpo is 6'4", and most teams in the Premier League are averaging 6'1" across their regular starters. You know, it's big, brutish, athletic fellas who. So okay, we saw a fella trying to do that to him, and you know he did all right against it. But 90 minutes game after game after game is a different kind of fish.
I even think training and the intensity of training week after week is something that he's like, because he is obviously in and around the first team group, but they are still having to manage how much he trains with the first team, how much he trains with the 21s. Because, like you say, not only is he a young boy, but he's still physiologically quite young. So you suspect that there's a lot of growing to do. And as you mentioned, stuff with Stefan Bajcetic, that's the kind of thing that's always going to give you pause whenever you've got a great young player on your hands. But another one, whenever we talk about these too much too soon, obviously there's people who come back and give the opposite examples, like James Milner is obviously the most obvious one, in as much as he started young, but he was able to keep going. I mean, by the way, he is the exception that proves the rule in a lot of ways, because like his career is just so remarkable for so many ways, and his obviously physical traits. He did start as a winger and as a forward, but it was very clear early on that he wasn't necessarily going to be using his pace as his main weapon in his career. Obviously, with Rio, that's different. So I do think there's a bit of a difference there. But the one I keep going back to is Emilio Insua, when he played for Liverpool. And he came in at a time when I think Desena had been the previous left-back, and we were all very much not impressed with him. And then he got an injury. And Insua was the only left-back available at the club. I think Aurelio was also injured at that time. And he just there was no choice but to keep playing him and keep playing him, keep playing him. And then he went through a bit of a rough patch of form, and then he was getting criticised, he was getting hammered. And it was a really toxic time at Liverpool. Anyway, it was the last year of Rafa Benitez, and if you're old enough to remember that, you'll know quite how toxic that was in terms of the fan base. And you just think, this is not the kind of thing that a young kid needs at that point in his development in his career. And I mean, to be fair to Insua, he did go on to have a decent career beyond that at like Stuttgart, Atletico Madrid and stuff. But it's not really the best way to grow and develop a great young talent. And I just think that, as I've said quite a few times on this show, the short-term demands and needs of Liverpool should come on the backseat to the long-term demands and needs of Rio and Gamora. And that might sound backwards to some people, but I think when you've got talented young players, that's really the way it should be. I think you have to put him in situations where you want him rather than you need him to be good. And when the team isn't doing well, that's normally when young players are able to get a chance. And unfortunately, but it's also when you're often looking to them to do things because your first team players haven't done them. So it's a difficult situation. I do understand why they've been so cautious with him. I do think there comes a point where that he's almost so good that kind of overrides everything. But I still think that we have to acknowledge the fact that him getting any minutes at all at this stage of the season is massive. Like, we talk about young players and talk about great young players getting into the first team and stuff like that. That still mostly happens in the first half of the season. Like, the second half of the season, where every game could be the difference between winning a trophy or not winning a trophy, achieving your objectives or not achieving your objectives. That's normally where it's down to the senior guys. So to have him even in the getting any minutes at all at this stage is remarkable to how much they trust him. But I still think we have to be careful. So if he ends up starting a Premier League game between now and the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised. But if that does happen and he does well, don't expect him to start all of them. Please. Don't expect it, because it's just not working.
And look, he's still clearly got stuff to learn as well. I mean, we mentioned the little wee jog he's having for Wolves as winner in the league game. There's a bit of a hint at that from Slot when talking about the FA Cup game, when he said, well, it's a nice game because you face 5 defenders and defensively you don't have to do so much, and he can use all his energy for the attacking part. Kind of felt like a little bit of a roundabout way of saying, because the other bit needs a bit of work, which is absolutely fair. He's a young lad, and we all remember Andy Robbo calling him a wee prick in training because he hadn't done what he wanted him to do. And talking of Andy Robbo, he was of course behind Ingamoa and scored an absolute beauty. Didn't we all love that? You are not human, you are made of stone if you did not enjoy that goal. Then the assist straight after, quality in his interviews as well. Absolutely loved his face after the goal as well. He still remains the fella out of the Liverpool squad who would most like to go and have a pint with. And of course it led to, immediately after the match in terms of the interview, immediately after the match in terms of the analysis, immediately after the match in terms of everything on social media, the obvious thing happened, which was, should we keep him? Because I think he's 32 very soon. He was obviously linked with Spurs. I bet you he's very glad that he didn't go there. And to be fair, he spoke about that quite openly after the game as well. He said there was obviously interest there. There was discussions with both sets of clubs, but the decision was that I wanted to stay. We stayed at Liverpool, and that was the decision. I was never not committed. I've been committed to Liverpool for the last 8.5 or 9 years now. I'll be committed until I'm no longer needed, and that's always been my mindset. This club has given me everything, and I've given this club everything. It's been a fantastic relationship, so hopefully that continues. And obviously January happened, but that's now gone. Now we move forward, and like I said, my focus never came off trying to help the lads on the pitch and in training. Whatever was happening behind the scenes happened, and all I can say is that I kept on focusing on football. I'll always say that the talks will stay between me and the club. I don't think it will get played out in public. It's not one of them. I've got an amazing relationship with Richard Hughes and with Mike Gordon and Michael Edwards. I've got a good relationship with these people. These people brought me to the club. They've helped make me who I am. So in that respect, we've had a fantastic relationship. And I think out of respect to them, the conversations will be in-house. His contract is, of course, up at the end of the season. So what do you think? How do you think this particular one will play out?
It's interesting.
Interesting he didn't say Slot there, by the way.
No. Although sometimes with those kind of things, you kind of you can almost look into it too much. So I think
they are the people who ultimately will decide age, money offered, length of contract. None of that's on the manager. No,
but this is it. And he will already be in those negotiations, and he will know that the people he's negotiating with isn't on a Slot. And it's not because the club don't believe Slot's going to be in or any of that kind of stuff. Like you say, it's a head coach. It's not in his remit. So, first of all, it's actually his birthday on Wednesday. So, happy birthday, Andy, if you're watching. I was standing in front of him when he was talking. We gave those quotes. I was holding my phone up to his face. And sometimes you read quotes from a player and you think, well, that could sound very different depending upon tone, depending upon all other kind of things that you don't get from raw text on a page, that you get from hearing him say the words. With those quotes, with Andy Robbo, we've seen him enough times now. You can read those quotes and you can hear his voice saying them in your mind. And that's exactly how he said them. Just straight down the line. And one of the things I always like about Robbo is when he's talking to you, he's looking at you. So, you know how some people will say something that maybe they're uncomfortable saying and they'll kind of look away or they'll avoid eye contact. None of that with him. He's straight down the line. And everything that he said there is absolutely spot on. He has been a great for this club for 9 years.
Superb.
And he knows his worth. So one of the things that I picked up on from talking to him and from watching him answer those questions, if you gave him the option, if you took money out of the equation and you gave him the option to stay or to not stay, I think he wants to stay. Obviously, there's a conversation around playing time. I think he does still truly believe that he can be a starting footballer for someone. I do think personally that there's almost now come to the point where where he believes he is and where he is isn't necessarily exactly the same point. So he still probably believes he can play 30, 35 games for Liverpool. I'd say he can probably play 25 games for Liverpool as a starter and do well. Whether or not he gets a better offer from somewhere else to play the kind of number of games and importance of games that he feels he can, that's going to be what decides this. I think if you ask him in his heart, does he want to stay? Yes, he wants to stay. Do I think the club want him to stay? Personally, I do. I think I asked him about Rio because you mentioned Verge shouting at him. I heard Robbo go, Rio, 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 pretty much the whole game. He was kind of coaching him into position, and he spoke afterwards about his decision-making and how he'd spoken to him previously about his decision-making and about how he can take on everybody, but he doesn't have to take on everyone. And to hear him talk about how he'd kind of developed and how he'd learned and how his all-round game was great, you can really tell that he's invested in him. He cares. It matters to him how this guy develops. And that's not something you do if your mind is mentally already leaving the club. He wants to stay and he wants to help.
You know that, don't you? I mean, like, Scott, or a lot of them anyway, I think are very, similar characteristics to Liverpool. And I think with Andy, what you say is what you get. I don't think he's messing around. He's put everything into playing for Liverpool and more, and I don't think it's not an effort thing. He's been an absolutely brilliant player, and how many times in past conversations in younger days did you do your Liverpool 11 and then you get into left back and you're like, Steve Nicol, you know what I mean? Like, well, here's a left back that's we had so many left backs that weren't good enough or were injured or whatever, and it seemed to be like a perennial problem. Who's left back? Why can't we get a good left back? Well, we've had an absolutely brilliant one. But yeah, 14 starts this season, sitting on the bench, twiddling his thumbs 16 times, and then on as a substitute 13 times is probably not what he's after in an ideal world. And, he was 45 appearances last season, 33 in the league. If you look back as well, 36 in the league, 36 in the league, 38 in the league, 34 in the league. He's used to playing pretty much every single game and has been brilliant when doing so. But equally, we can't hide from the fact, because we love the fella, that mistakes were starting to creep in, giving away penalties, getting caught at the back. But all of these things we saw when he was playing regularly, and then they've invested the money in Kirkes. I thought you might not have seen it if you were down there. Like there was some weird takes on the telly from Danny Murphy and Alan Shearer in the studio. I saw a clip about
what Danny Murphy said. Yeah,
they were talking about Robbo, and I get the attachment to Robbo. I've got a big one myself. I think he's been absolutely fantastic for him. I think it'll be a sad day when he does leave Liverpool, and I hope it's not soon. But they sort of talked as though Kirkes has been shite, and he hasn't, lads. I mean, it kind of come across that you're not watching 90 minutes of Liverpool every week if you think that, really, because he's been good for a good while now. Yes. He hasn't been an issue, and everyone who I know who goes to games been coming away saying, looks good, the lad done, he's doing well, the lad. So, this idea that Robbo should have been starting ahead of him on the regular, maybe earlier on in the season, when he was struggling. Now, no.
Nah, and who does that remind you of? Taking half a season to really get his feet under the table as a Liverpool player. Oh yeah, Robbo.
Indeed. So yeah, we shall see how it unfolds. I mean, one thing that, just talk to what he's done as well. So Champions League 2019, Super Cup 2019, Club World Cup 2019, Premier League 2019-20 and 24-25. Obviously, League Cup 2022, FA Cup 2022, League Cup 2024. It's not bad, is it? And there are 1,001 players out there, obviously, that you could say deserve a statue. It's almost like an absolute chestnut of a thing for fans to say to each other. So I'm not seriously advocating that he should get one, because the record appearance maker for Liverpool Football Club, as an example, hasn't got a statue or any recognition. Maybe Carly should have that. This is a debate for another day. Although you could do a mural, maybe we can paint over Trent. But if you were,
there's plenty of other space around Anfield, but yeah,
paint over Trent. But if we were having one, I was thinking about this today when I was writing the agenda. If we were having one, what would you have it as for Robbo? What would sum up Robbo? I was thinking, I think I'd have him buzzing off Pickford.
That's a great moment. To be fair, there are quite a few iconic Robbo moments. So there's that one. There's obviously the Messi, but
Messi, yeah.
You can have two off that. So there's the him actually ruffling Messi's hair, and then there's the face doing the post-match interview where it's just and someone asked him about it, and he's like, "We're in the final." He's just got that little lovely grin on his face. But for me, it has to be the City game. It has to be the moment where Andy Robbo was born as a Liverpool player. Yeah. And you could do it so it would be like a kind of almost like a running mural. So you have him running to one player, and then him running to another player, then him running to another player. So you could just have it. So it's in stages. In the they used to do those kind of cartoon drawings of a goal in the newspaper, and it'd be one frame would be him here, and then you get that, and it would look like he's got a string and he's running through.
I mean, we are in the digital age. You could just have a video of him chasing down Man City on a loop, playing in some wall at Anfield somewhere. Yeah. That'd do it, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean, I think him and many others of this sort of era of players, including the now injured Alisson, will go down in history as being among the Liverpool greats. I think that's absolutely fair. Moving on, some other stuff from these games. Just wanted to have a quick natter on Curtis Jones. Took some stick for giving the ball back to Alisson. We had all the you don't do that at any point. You never coach to do that type of thing. I think it's a fair expectation that you'd expect Alisson to be able to kick the ball somewhere else than where he did, to be honest with you, but that's just me.
So it's looking at it, because that was my initial instinct, and then looking at it again, his pass does go close to the Wolves player, but how many times do we see the Liverpool defenders and goalkeeper play passes that go close to an attacker, but get to where they're supposed to go and do what they're supposed to do? And if we're going to stop them doing that, then it's going to take away a lot of the opportunities for them.
They're not going to stop doing that.
No, exactly.
I mean, we had this, we had the transition to seeing stuff that we don't expect to see happened when we had Brendan Rodgers, and you had all our fellas going, "Oh!" Should be used to it by now. They play around with it at the back. That is where we are with modern football. So yeah, I'd expect Alisson to put his foot through it and not put it where he was. But I wanted to accentuate the positives, which the goal he scores. Yeah. I thought it was class, and the first thing that came into my mind when he scored it, I was literally watching it and I thought, Steve McManaman.
Yeah.
It's an absolute Steve McManaman goal. Dribbles through, shimmies through, side-footed finish from outside the box. Keeper can't get there. It's placed, it's purposeful. It's Steve McManaman.
Yeah. There's two things I loved about it. First of all, when Sir Gravenberg wins the ball and looks like he wants to try and pass it to someone, and he just takes it off him. He's like, "Nah, mate, I've got this. Don't worry." And then, like you say, he's on his little run and he gets to the end of the box, and it's there's 4 Wolves defenders around him. And he just looks up and is like, "None of you are going to stop me from shooting, yeah? all right, sound. I'll just put it in the bottom corner. And he did. He didn't blast it. He passed it.
Yeah, it was lovely. Great goal. We've got to talk about some of the negatives as well. I think the league game in particular had a big bout of joyless football. I think it's fair to say this isn't exclusive to Liverpool, but it's Liverpool that we care about and Liverpool who we watch, so it's Liverpool we're going to talk about. Centre-half, obviously not great on Wolves' goal. Disappointing, of Wolves' first goal. Disappointing goal in the FA Cup game as well. They just launch it and Szoboszlai doesn't deal with it, and then they scored, and it's a bit like, look, I know it's one, but fucking hell.
Yeah.
Salah's goal drought is over. Performance-wise, convincing-wise, that bit's not over. Another late goal as well. Another sickener. I mean, what would that down to? Why? Because it is statistically wild, as everyone's showing us and telling us on a regular basis. It does seem to be a thing that has developed, that Liverpool are extremely susceptible to a late goal, even in a game they've dominated.
It's strange because I agree with Slot when he says that it's hard to put a finger on one thing because it's not the same kind of goal.
No,
again and again.
But statistically, it's a stage of the game when they're struggling.
It's the time of the game. So I think this was one of the occasions where Liverpool were trying to win it at that point when they conceded a goal. So, I mean, we spoke before about, obviously, Rio not doing his greatest job of tracking back, but there was a little bit more of a... it wasn't a structured football. It was a little bit more harem-scarum. It was a little bit more like all hands on deck kind of situation. And that has been Liverpool's downfall. If you look back at most of those goals, so I think of, obviously we've spoken about Palace where Frimpong's coming out to attack when we should be staying in to defend. Chelsea was another situation where Liverpool were throwing everyone forward and then they had to come back on a counter-attack. Obviously the Bournemouth one's a little bit weird. It's kind of its own thing. Fulham, again, it's a blast on the top corner. You can't really argue with that.
Beauty, that to be fair.
It was a great goal. So there are some characteristics that are the same, but the interesting thing for me is that I do think that Slot has been talking about Liverpool being fitter at this stage of the season, and I'm not 100% sure that it's bearing out, because there are a few times where it's like players aren't necessarily putting in the same intensity as they were, and like physical fitness sometimes manifests itself in mental mistakes as well. If you are tired, you are more likely to maybe make a mistake, or maybe miskick a ball, or maybe not quite put that extra effort in, or maybe just get
There's bigger stuff at play as well, isn't it? I mean, you'd have to be absolutely, you'd have to have no eyes to not be able to see that McAllister is not performing to anywhere near the level that we used to.
No.
And so, given the role he's got in the side and what he's traditionally done, if he's not at his best anyway, and then at the end of the match he's not at his best, you know what I mean? Like, and I just think like the squad, like no one likes the word transition, but we're still in one, and we need more turnover on the players. He's one where I would be saying, to be honest with you, if we can cash in on him, cash in on him. And as our fella's saying, there's no contract talks or whatever.
Which goes against what some other people have been saying.
Yeah, seeing that as well. But I've just kind of think, you've not really performed me, to be honest, to the levels that you did. So if there's a question mark over your future at Liverpool, it's not unfair.
No. And to be honest, so two things at play here. First of all, when someone comes out and says there are no contract talks and someone else says there are, it gets the feeling like almost the person who says that there aren't is trying to generate public opinion, as just to say, well, why aren't you talking about a contract with him? Why aren't you giving this person a new deal? And obviously, within the Liverpool sphere, we've seen how that can work.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Salah.
Feels like a little bit of a bat sign, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, to other potential clubs and all the rest of it.
Exactly. But I also think the Slot himself hasn't always helped Maka by doing what he thinks is helping him. Because I think there were so many times when you should have taken him out of the firing line earlier. Like, so when he comes off in the FA Cup game, he looks like he's been taken off the field of battle. Like, and a lot of the time when he comes off as a substitute, he has been spending a lot of time on the floor, whether it's through, because he's tired and he wants to stay down, or someone's put a decent hard tackle on him. But he always looks kind of bedraggled when he's coming off. And I think, so when Slot makes the sub in the league game to take off Konate and bring on Chiesa, what that does is it means that Joe Gomez has to move from his position. It means that Curtis Jones has to move from his position. And then you add in an extra person. So rather than making 3 positional changes, which can help cause some of the structural chaos I mentioned, just make 1 change. Just bring off McAllister, put on Chiesa, and then that means that you've got 1 positional change. That's all, rather than 3. But Slot seems very reluctant to be without McAllister for any length of time, and so you get into situations where he's probably not at his best anymore. And I just think that we could have helped him a little bit more with just being a bit more sparing.
Not winning duels and stuff like that, though. You know, that I'm not sure how you're helping him in that. That's him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and it does feel like he's played an awful lot of football, and perhaps he's on the downward slope. And look, there's the thing, the Liverpool chestnut of let them grab hold on other people's books. And I'm sure, given how Salah's unfolded as an example, that, you know, people that you think are just here forever and will do a job forever. Well, we've seen it before. Like, I mean, you know, Fabinho was absolutely brilliant and then he fell off a cliff.
That. Yeah. Around the same age.
Yeah. So it could just be like, you know, demands of the modern sport and all the rest of it. And also, or demands in the Premier League in particular.
There's also an argument, and this might be me drawing conclusions from a very small sample size, but you mentioned Fabinho. I think of another South American defensive-ish midfielder who fell off a cliff, Casemiro. And you can't really not look at how much they're having to do internationally, every international break, all the miles that they're travelling. And these are players who were playing pretty much every week or playing as much football as possible for their international teams. I do think that coming to the end of this World Cup cycle feels like an opportune time if the right offer comes in. I also think as well, you look around the Premier League, there are a couple of players who I think, okay, if you brought him in to do the job McAllister would do, I think he'd probably do it better than the version of McAllister we've got right now.
Yeah. Where are we time-wise there, the boys? 10 minutes left. Okay. Want to give a shout out to the Wolves fans, as you'd expect.
Yes.
We're absolutely class over Diogo Jota. Obviously played for Wolves as well. But, you know, it still deserves saying. So I'm saying it. They did fantastic work there. It was really nice in both games, the respect for Diogo. Also thought it was really good what the club have done, Wolves, in terms of these paintings that have been unveiled at Molineux, created using inks from the floral tributes laid by the fans. So if you didn't see that, it was part of the TV coverage, and it was mentioned in the press, etc. But the paintings are by Jody Craddock, who obviously played for Wolves. And yeah, just think it's a really nice, thoughtful gesture. They're going to hang permanently in the reception area at Molineux for supporters to visit. And one of the directors has said, you know, this memorial is for everyone within the club as well as the fans. It's not just sort of something that'll be like locked away. It's a reminder really that it's still only 249 days since he passed away, by the way. So for all that we get stuck in, and I include myself on this, we've got to keep coming back to the fact that if players are affected in any way, mentally, physically, in terms of, you know, their preparation, they were literally about to start pre-season when that happened with Diogo. We all said we were going to be kind, so are we being kind? You know, an example would be that, you know, when you look at this season coldly, and I was doing this the other night because it was trotting around it. You know, it was another league defeat, wasn't it? And you know, that was going round in my mind, and I was thinking about past years, and I was thinking about where you call time on managers because of, you know, performances and all of that kind of thing. And so I started having a look, and the tweet, I put a tweet out saying, like, you know, there's Brendan Rodgers' last full season vibes in that 9 league defeats already. Still got to go to Brighton, Everton, Man United and Villa away. And Liverpool's current home and away points per game as us landing on 63 points. Well, Rodgers finished on 62 and in 6th. Now, we might sort of get away with it because all the other teams around us are a bit mad as well. But I kind of think, like I was thinking about it again today, and I was thinking, well, you know, we've all been frustrated at times. We've all kicked off at times. The 9-12 was horrendous. But any manager would be tested by the death of a first team player. Any manager would be tested by the way the squad ins and outs went this season, and the players we didn't get as well as the ones we did get, the players who left as well as the ones that came in. The fact that, you know, a quarter of this dough that everyone keeps talking about is sitting with a broken leg. You know, any of this would have tested any manager in the world. Is this me making excuses for him? Well, if you want to term it that way, that's on you. I'm merely saying facts, and I still feel like we're at a bit of a point, and this bears into me saying, you know, maybe give him a fucking little bit of a break here. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because I seen him talking about, you know, one Wolves game being very similar to the other, and then people sort of jumping on that a little bit. I mean, they literally were.
He was right, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you know, like, okay, Wolves win 1-2-1 and we win the other one 3-1. But the rest is uncannily similar when you look at the stats. It's like, you know, Liverpool have 65% possession in the one they lose, 66 in the one they win. You know, even down to the number of passes, 609 in the one they lose, 621 600. You know, XG, everything is very, very similar, except there were 2 moments of brilliance in the FA Cup, 2 shots from distance, 2 players that hadn't even scored. You know, that's Robertson's first ever goal for Liverpool from outside the box, and Curtis Jones' last goal from outside the box for Liverpool was in January 2024.
Yeah.
So these things are going to help you win a football match.
And also, I mean, look, the moment where Curtis Jones could have scored in the first game, where Cody Gakpo's remarkable goal line clearance.
That was absolutely wild, that wasn't it? That was one of them where you're looking, you're looking up at the heavens, aren't you? And you're just saying, wow.
I knew we weren't going to win that game at that point. But the point is that if that goes in, who's to say Liverpool can't do what they did in the second game, score another goal 3 minutes later?
And that's not the manager, by the way. No. Is it? The moments like that. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely didn't tell him to do that.
Yeah.
But you're right to say that, look, I know it sounds trite to say goals change games, but it's trite because it's true. And it has been that way for the whole of football history. So the idea that you can play the same game twice and have completely different outcomes because of the big moments change it. That's what we were saying after the West Ham game, wasn't it? It was like, we've seen this performance loads of times. It's just that this time, their big chances didn't go in and ours did.
Yeah, exactly.
Like people don't like the fact that football can be so dependent on the winds of change. But something I'm an article that I'm going to be writing, of course, this week is talking about how no one gets battered anymore. You don't see teams getting beat 4, 5, 6-0 as much anymore. So, just a little preview. So far this season, in 30 game weeks in the Premier League, there has been 6 games that have been won by a 4-goal margin in the whole league. 6. Now, after 30 game weeks last season, there were 21. So already you're seeing this season, teams just aren't smashing people anymore. Now, the reasons for that are what I'm going to go into in the article. But the fact remains is that the league is changing so much. So the idea that someone is just going to be completely dominant week in, week out, and just have no drama, no issues or anything like that, it's just a lot less likely. Like, games are more likely to be tight. They're more likely to come down to 1 or 2 big moments going either way. And again, like you're saying before, this isn't just a Liverpool thing. This is an everyone thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think the problem is that, when the manager's trying to make points that are entirely fair, like the two Wolves games being very similar, it's a point that's true, but it's a point that's harder to land when you've lost 12 all comps. You've lost 28% of all games this season. People, are on a hair trigger, ready to go again if you lose another one. I think the league defeat against Wolves in like a ordinary season, i.e. a more successful one, you would probably have said it was one of them. But no one wants to hear it's one of them when you've already lost 11 games. Just to put that into context, what I'm talking about as well, since that horrendous 9 defeats in 12 from September to November, Liverpool's record is played 23, won 14, drawn 6 and lost 3. Now, okay, loads of those performances have been frustrating, boring, whatever you want to call it, but it hasn't been what it was before. Is it good enough? Well, I guess we'll find out. What I would say as well, and you're sitting closer to him than me at times, it looks like he's feeling all this quite a lot. He looks like he's starting to look like a bit of a more tired fella.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's getting to him a little bit.
I agree. I think the press conference before the FA Cup game was possibly the most tetchy I've seen him. I think there were a couple of times, and even that, I mean, we need to remember the context here. Like, some of Jurgen Klopp's press conferences won't be on tetchy. It's an outright confrontation.
He was absolutely wading into athletic journalists and what have you. So let's not forget.
So, and this was nowhere near that. This is just within the context.
And the wrong one, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I get if you're watching, but no. Within the context of that, it was nowhere near that. But compared to where he's been before, like, there was definitely a couple of things that have irked him about the discourse around him, and particularly around what he is or isn't telling the team to do and all that kind of stuff. And he feels a little bit like he's got to kind of fight his own corner of who he is and what he wants to be as a manager. And it's almost as if, like, you can look at it and say, well, he's thinking, well, there's loads of hidden context about why this is going the way it has that we aren't talking about. But if I talk about that, you don't like it either. So I'm not going to talk about it. So yeah, obviously it's going to be stressful for him. Obviously he knows that, having gone through the season that we went through last year, and even though we all know that a lot of the money came in as well, they spent a lot of money. And these are the kind of things that people in our business, in my business, are going to fixate upon. So it's made it more difficult for him. But do I think that he still thinks that he can fight his way through it? Yes. I don't think we've got to a point yet where I'm thinking that he's mentally thinking, this is too much. I wouldn't say that at all.
Okay, well, we're going to talk. I'm now not going to talk because time is up. But well in that Gravenberch signed a new contract. We're all happy about that, aren't we? 2032, still only 23. Great player, big smile, boss fella, 4th highest paid player at the club now. He's sticking around. Isn't that good? Yes, it is. Galatasaray, we were going to talk about them. A lot of it you'll know anyway. The top of the league. They score loads of goals. They concede loads of goals. They're a bit mad. Wirtz will hopefully play in the game. Be shocked if Inga Moa starts. I was going to ask Mo why Osimhen is at Galatasaray because
we definitely haven't got time to go into all
but
that.
We haven't got time to get into that. But he has scored 17 goals and got 6 assists, and he scored 7 goals in 8 games in the Champions League, and that is why Chelsea, Barcelona and Juventus are all interested in him, because he's still only 27. They will of course have no fans at Anfield for the second leg. We'll see how it all unfolds. We're all going to watch it, aren't we? Yes, we are. Okay, that's tomorrow. Great. Only other stuff I was going to mention football-wise was 23 red cards in one game in Brazil. That is some going well in, lads. I also like that it's a record for Brazilian football, but it's only beaten the previous record by 1. And that's absolutely amazing going, lads. And what I was going to do if we'd had time, but we haven't, because I'm padding through it dead fast. But I was going to talk about red cards, about Liverpool ones, about players against Liverpool and all that. I might just save that section for another show.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to put it on the Patreon, because we've got other stuff to talk about on there.
You know what?
But it feels like evergreen content.
I was just going to say, I feel like that might come around again. Well, I mean, we're playing Spurs and Romero's back for that game.
There we go. Next time there's some red cards, I'll bring the red card chat back. But instead, over on... I just wanted to say, look, I like fan protest. I like it when fans make their voices heard. Loads of people don't like me because I do that kind of stuff. Loads of people don't like fans who do that type of stuff. Well, we'll have to agree to disagree and all that, but a mask fan unplugging a video assistant referee monitor in a German second division match because he thought VAR was shite. I thought that was great. Well into him. More power to his elbow and all that kind of thing. Join us over on Patreon if you want to know why the internet's made everything shit. That is the title of the subscriber show. I know there's a certain irony to that because we're literally on it. Don't worry. But do come over there and join us. It's only £1 a week for the extra show. Keeps the lights on for the late challenge. All the usual stuff. And yeah, see you over there if you fancy that. And if you don't, see you next week for the free show. Well in, up the Reds.